She had 2 luggage and was waiting at my door. She appeared to have not slept because her eyes were red. Now my welcome mat was the scene of my dumb joke from last night. She questioned, "Was that offer real? Noah, do you really want me to live with you?" I just stared at her for a moment. My brain lost its ability to function. In a boisterous bar in downtown Denver, there had been a half-drunk line last night. It was a real Tuesday, with real luggage and a real question tonight. I responded slowly. "Emma, what happened?" She flashed me a faint, unsteady smile that stopped short of her eyes. "May I enter first? Before I reveal to you my enormous mess?" "Indeed." Naturally. I moved out of the way. She pulled one bag behind her and rolled the other in. As usual, the stench of burnt popcorn filled the corridor, yet all I could detect was her vanilla scent. Even when she was simply the younger sister of my best friend and would take fries from my plate, it had always done that to me. I shut the door behind me and looked at her. She was wearing vintage Converse, black leggings, and an oversized gray hoodie. Strands of her dark hair fell about her face in an untidy bun. She appeared to have been crying for a while in a car. Something in my chest twisted. I muttered, "I was kidding. Last evening." I believed I was, however. "I take it you are aware of that?" She made a scratchy little sound when she laughed. "Indeed. I am aware. To silence Tyler, you said that." She mimicked my voice when she stated, "Just move in with me if you detest your roommates so much." Everyone chuckled. You lifted your beer. Then we talked about something else. Now I could remember it well. We had visited Murphy's, the Irish pub close to the workplace. She had arrived late from her hospital shift. She reiterated to us how her roommate had been over at 3 in the morning, never cleaned, and never paid rent on time. For months, I had heard several versions of the story. Then I said it. "Come live with me." There was a lot of response. That was the idea. Every time Emma expressed how miserable she was at home, a selfish part of me wished I could make things better. I was attempting to hide this reality. I wished I could make things right for her. In my tiny one-bedroom flat, she was now standing there as if the cosmos had called my bluff. "Did your roommate have an incident?" I inquired. As if, worse than normal? She encircled herself with her arms. Last night, she hosted her pals once more. Loud music, marijuana, and strangers. That is typical. However, one of them attempted to enter my bedroom this time. Twice. Her eyes gleamed as she gazed up at me. It was secured. However, he was intoxicated. He said, "Come on, nurse girl, live a little," while continuing to chuckle. I felt sick to my stomach. "Have you called the police?" She gave a headshake. "By the door," I shouted at him. He took a step back. My roommate then began yelling at me, claimed that I was acting like someone's mother and that I was killing the vibe. She said I could leave if I didn't like it. My chest erupted in anger. "So you went?" "Not immediately." She glanced at the ground. "I arrived at work this morning as usual. 3 patients who believed Google was more knowledgeable than I was, a 12-hour shift, and a staffing shortage." She let out a breath. She had dumped my belongings in trash bags when I got home, claimed to have already discussed taking over the lease with the owner, and to be serious about the energy in the apartment. "You're joking," I remarked. "I wish I was." Her voice cracked as she shrugged. I sobbed for 15 minutes while sitting in my car. Then I recalled your dumb joke from the previous evening. I took a swallow. "You drove here, then?" she said. "So I drove here." At last she gave me a full look, and there it was, a mixture of wrath, terror, and a sort of optimism. "I am aware that you most likely didn't mean it. I am aware that this is a lot to ask. However, you are the only person who has ever given me a sense of security in this city. Therefore, I must know if you were even slightly sincere when you made that statement." Secure. I was surprised by how hard the word hit me. Emma and I had been friends for 10 years. I first met her when I was 19 and she was 16. On the weekends, we would hang out at their house and play video games with her brother, Matt. She used to follow us into the kitchen and inquire about Denver, college, and life outside of our little Ohio town. She was merely the younger sister at the time. She then relocated here to attend nursing school. After I spotted her carrying a cappuccino on a random downtown street, my mind refused to ever again perceive her as a kid. Since then, I had been making an effort to avoid making a mistake. With caution, I finally said, "I have a pull-out couch and a depressingly small kitchen table that I never use. Additionally, there is only one towel rack in the bathroom. It's not much." She furrowed her brows. "That isn't a response." I inhaled. Last night, I was more than 5% serious. Her eyes slightly expanded. I said, Emma, I didn't say it because I assumed you would arrive with bags. However, the thought of you living in a subpar apartment with people who don't give a damn about you has always driven me crazy, so I said it. We'll make accommodations if you need us somewhere to stay, whether it's for a night, a week, or longer. I want you to be here. There. Now it was out. It's no joke. No deflection. Actual. She looked at me for a long time as if she was mentally reciting every word. How about Matt? She whispered. If he found out that I was living with his best friend, he would go crazy. I flinched. Indeed. He may. For the first time, a small, genuine smile pulled at the corner of her mouth as she said, Might? I said, all right. He would completely lose it. He would kick in the door after driving here from Ohio. You're not a child, though. You are 26 years old. I'm not him either. I have no right to give you instructions. Nor does he. She lowered her gaze to her hands. He still addresses me as though I'm 16. Before I could stop myself, I added, because he doesn't see what I see. She looked up once more. What do you see, too? The space seemed weighty and cramped. All of a sudden, the refrigerator's hum seemed deafening. A distant siren screamed outside before fading. I observed the girl who stayed late to tend to frightened patients at the hospital. The woman who relocated across the country by herself was someone I saw. I ran across the individual who texted me at 2 in the morning because she was having trouble breathing after losing her first patient. I tried so hard not to damage the relationship with the person I was half in love with. I was unable to utter all of that, though. Not quite yet. Instead, I remarked, I see someone who deserves better than having her stuff shoved in trash bags. Some drunk guy doesn't know what a boundary is, so I see someone who shouldn't have to sleep behind a locked door. She swallowed, moving her throat. So it won't be strange if I stay here? To be honest, I said, it's going to be weird. If I claimed it wouldn't, I would be lying. Too much time has passed since we first met for it not to be. However, odd isn't always a bad thing. She glanced around my tiny kitchen, at my couch, and at the Denver skyline that was visible through the small window. She then turned back to face me. She took a tiny step forward and murmured, one more time. Don't make jokes. Are you really asking me to move in with you, Noah Carter? I could feel the pounding of my heart in my fingertips. Yes, I said. Yes, I am. She felt as though a big weight had fallen off her shoulders. Then, immediately, the room was filled with new tension. An alternative type. All right, she muttered. Then before I unpack anything, I have a secret I must share with you. My stomach grew constricted. What sort of secret? Her eyes met mine as she inhaled. The kind that could make you wish you hadn't invited me in. I felt sick to my stomach. I tried to speak. In a casual tone as I said, You're scaring me a little. Emma exhaled and walked past me into the living room, as if she was buying time by running her fingertips along the back of my old gray couch. She said, Remember how I said Matt still treats me like I'm 16? Yes. That's not the worst of it. She chewed on her lower lip as she turned to face me. He would be in his truck right now, driving from Ohio to drag me home, if he knew my roommate had thrown my belongings out. I remarked, That sounds like him. My best friend was not subtle, yet I still liked him. She said, He called me while I was sitting in my car today, trying not to have a complete breakdown in the hospital parking lot. And I inquired. She added, and I told him I was fine. In reality, I was going to move in with someone I trust. Someone who protects me. Someone who is more familiar with Denver than I, and the direction this was taking already didn't appeal to me. Who specifically was that someone, according to you? Her gaze locked with mine. You. I blinked. Me. You. She said again in a quiet but firm voice. I informed him that we had been conversing for some time, that things were becoming serious, and that I was asked to move in by you. My brain reset itself. We're together? You told your brother? She grimaced. I informed him that you were the one who had destigmatized Denver, that I had finally agreed to move in when you asked me to. After a moment of silence, he said, I trust Noah if that's him. Don't let him break your heart, please. One hand swept through my hair. Emma, I understand, she said hastily. I realized it was foolish. I simply panicked. I was essentially homeless, but I didn't want to tell him. I didn't want to sound like a failure if he told me to return. Your name was the only thing that seemed secure, so I grabbed for it. My chest was constricted for a dozen reasons as I gazed at her. I said, Do you really believe that makes me regret letting you in? She slumped her shoulders. It could, because I now have to call him back and tell him that I lied if you say, actually, never mind, this is too much, that I was never intended to be here, that I am more of a mess than he initially believed. Her remarks caused more pain than I had anticipated. Hey, I murmured. I took a hesitant step toward her, as if she may run. I won't force you to do that. As though to check if I was just speaking the proper thing, she looked into my face. You don't mind that he believes where her cheeks flushed as she drifted off. Together? I asked her to finish. In my mouth, the words seemed both strange and ideal. I don't mind the way it sounds. I'm more concerned about its implications. What's that mean? She muttered. I replied, it means I can't lie if he calls and asks if I'm watching out for his sister. She took a swallow. Are you? Yes. Before my brain could filter it, the answer was out. I've been for quite some time. In her gaze, something flickered. She blinked quickly and turned her head away first. I hastily added, we don't have to figure all of this out tonight. The most important thing right now is that you don't sleep in your automobile. All right, she said. Setting some rules so we don't kill each other in this tiny place is priority too, I went on. A tiny smile pulled at her lips. Ground rules. All right. It sounds like an adult. I answered, we can fake it. So, the first rule is that you take the bed. She jerked her head up. No, not at all. I'm not going to throw you out of your residence. I reminded her. A stranger tried your door last night. You're getting a real door that locks and isn't next to my noisy refrigerator. She gave a headshake. Noah. I looked her in the eyes and murmured, Emma, allow me to do one thing. For a few seconds, we looked at one another. She let out a final sigh. All right, she said. However, only until I locate a new location. Or until your snoring gets so bad that I start to regret every choice I've ever made. I don't snore, I responded without thinking. She retorted, you don't know what you do when you sleep. My chest started to relax a little as I laughed. Even for a few moments, it was pleasant to hear that tone in her voice once more. Rule 2, she added, raising a hand as though she were now in a meeting. I pay my rent. Or a portion of it, anyway. I'm not going to stay here for nothing. I said, we'll come up with a fair solution. After you eat something, we can review your budget and my lease. She paused. I can't even recall when I last ate. Perhaps before my shift. Once more, my heart twisted. All right, the third emergency rule. There is always food in this apartment. She said, I'll write that down. I went to the kitchen and began taking items out of the refrigerator, including cheese, eggs, and some leftover baked potatoes. I could make it into something, but it wasn't fancy. She explored the living room as if she was seeing me for the first time as I was cooking. She grabbed the dumb dinosaur mug from the shelf and remarked, you kept it. It's not dumb, I objected. I got it when I got this job from you. You said, I'll at least drink coffee like a 6-year-old if this place eats me alive, she recalled with a smile. I said, that's still true. It sizzled in the pan. The fragrance of eggs and onions permeated the apartment. It seemed almost natural for a brief period, as if she had always been here. 2 suitcases weren't outside the door, and there wasn't a lie between us. We sat at the small table by the window after I gave her a plate. The lights in Denver winked back at us. You know that Matt is going to give you a call, she added in between mouthfuls. I assumed, I murmured. She said, he's going to ask a lot of questions. About us. Regarding your intentions. On Sundays, he still imagines fighting behind the church and baseball field. He will definitely drive here and give you a face punch if you injure me. I gave a small smile. All right. Someone ought to. She scowled. What is meant by that? I put down my fork and remarked. It means that if I ever do anything to intentionally hurt you, I deserve it. Her face softened. You say things like that all the time. Like what? She remarked. As if you've already determined that you are in charge of me. That's how no one else speaks to me. Perhaps they ought to, I remarked. She took a while to reply. Rather, she extended her hand and briefly touched my wrist. Even though it was a simple gesture, I was startled. Noah, she murmured. Yes. I also told Matt it was you because I didn't want to make up a random guy if I was going to lie about having a boyfriend. My heart pounded. So you chose the person you know well. I chose the one I already chose. She bit her lip once more to restrain herself. Ignore it. It was too quiet in the room. You already what? My voice was quiet as I asked. She looked directly into my eyes, and for a few seconds I believed she might say it. That she had faith in me already. That she was already concerned. That something more was already in her. On the table, however, her phone came to life and vibrated vigorously on the wood. We both gave a tiny leap. My gut twisted when I saw the name blazing on the screen. Matt. Emma's startled eyes shot to mine. She said, "He's early." The phone continued to ring. Her fingers were shaking as she thrust it at me. I said, "You don't have to respond." She struggled to breathe as she replied, "If I don't, he'll call the hospital and ask if I got in a wreck. Please, just support me. Only for tonight." Once more, the phone vibrated. I gazed at his name, at my image in the mirror, at the girl on the other side of me who had put her trust in me enough to bring everything she owned. I picked it up and clicked accept. "Hey, man," I responded, trying to maintain a calm tone. "That's Noah." "Yes," Matt said. "I know who it is." He spoke loudly and familiarly over the speaker, making me feel as though I was back in his parents' living room rather than my small Denver apartment. "Why are you taking Emma's phone call?" I gave her a quick look. Her fingers were intertwined in her lap as she gazed at me. "She is present," I declared. "We're together. Do you recall?" Silence fell on the line for a beat. His processing was nearly visible to me. "Put her on," he instructed. I put the phone on speaker and placed it on the table between us. Emma said, attempting to seem normal, "I'm here." Still, her voice trembled. "Are you all right?" Matt inquired. His tone became a little softer. "Yes," she lied. "Long day, but I'm all right." "Are you certain?" he asked. "Earlier, you sounded off." As she steadied herself, I watched her take a breath. "I'm simply worn out. My former roommate was acting like her typical self, and the night shift was horrible. But now I'm at Noah's. We are resolving the situation." "Old roommate?" he asked again. "What took place?" She paused. How much she wanted to communicate and how much she wanted to keep hidden was evident in her face. At last, she replied, "We got into a fight." She desired to live as if she were still a freshman living in dorms. I don't. It became unsightly. I therefore went. His voice hardened once more as he asked, "Is your stuff safe? Should I come up there?" "No," she answered hastily. "I have what I require. When she's not around, I'll return for the remainder. Noah is assisting me." Matt was silent for a while. At last, he said, "Noah." "Yeah." I replied. "You asked her to move in, really?" I took a swallow. Emma's big, uncertain eyes were fixed on me. "Yes," I said. "Yes, I did." "Are you certain about that?" he inquired. "She is not a stray dog that you can feed once and be satisfied with. This is my younger sister." I reclined in my chair and gazed at the worn hardwood floor. "I am fully aware of her identity." "Do you?" he asked. "Because you've witnessed my outbursts when men have tampered with her. Find out from Varsity Jacob what transpired when he caused her to cry during homecoming." "I recall," I replied. I had visited that place. In the parking lot of the church, Matt had almost smashed the man's nose. Matt said, "I'm going to say this once. Don't do this if it's only for convenience or if you want to be a hero for a week and then throw her back into whatever disaster she came from. How long we've been friends doesn't matter to me." "That's not it," I responded quietly. "I'm not trying to feel heroic by doing this. I'm taking action because I'm concerned about her well-being." Emma's breath caught next to me. Matt was silent for a few seconds on the other end. At last, he continued, "She says you're good to her. That you lessen the fear of Denver. I have faith in that. Keep me from regretting it." I said, "I won't. I promise." "All right," he said. "Reinstall her." Emma bent over. "I'm present." "What I said, I meant it," Matt informed her. "Tell me if something doesn't feel right. Even though it is 3 in the morning, I don't give a damn. I'll respond." "I understand," she said. "I'm all right, Matt. Actually, Noah is just being himself." I mumbled, "I take that as a compliment." I was nudged beneath the table by her. Matt gave a snort. "All right. My shift starts early. Tell me when you're free, Em." "And Noah?" "Yes. Look after her." "I will," I said. The call was cut off. It was a bit too quiet in the apartment. Glancing at the black screen, Emma took up her phone. "Well, that was only mildly terrifying," she replied in a light but tremulous voice. "Just a little bit." I said, "I feel honored." Her smile vanished in an instant. "I'm grateful for supporting me." "It wasn't supporting you," I remarked. It was expressing the portion of the truth that I am permitted to speak aloud. She looked into my eyes. What section is that? With my heart pounding, I murmured, that having you here feels right, even though I'm afraid of it. Her cheeks flushed, and she looked away. Every time you say something, I try not to think about it. As we moved around the tiny kitchen, we cleaned up dinner together. I felt it in areas I shouldn't say every time. Our shoulders touched. I took out a pillow for the couch and more blankets after doing the dishes. As I was removing the bedding from my bedroom, she leaned against the doorway and asked, "Are you sure about this?" "Good," I replied. "You take the bed. I can put up with one groaning couch." She reminded me that it went beyond a single evening. When your back feels like a pretzel, you might be regretting this. "I'll make a big fuss," I said. "You're going to roll your eyes. Everything will be all right." After observing me for a moment, she entered the room. She was moving in my space differently now, for some reason. Not quite like a visitor. It's more like someone exploring a potential home. She rubbed her fingers over the comforter while perched on the side of my bed. She said, "When I told my roommate I was leaving, you know what she said?" "What?" Emma remarked. She laughed, as if I were the joke. "No guy will want to live with a nurse," she remarked. "You're constantly away. You're worn out. You witness disgusting things. You're not enjoyable." I tightened my jaw. "She sounds like a pleasure." Emma's lips curled. "So you can kick me out if I start to crash here and you find out that I go to sleep on the couch at 9 and discuss medication schedules while I'm asleep." I said, "I'm not throwing you out. I'll just cover you with a blanket and turn down the volume if you nod off on the couch." Her eyes were gentle in the low light as she gazed up at me. "You say that as though you've considered it before." I took a swallow. "Perhaps I have." The atmosphere between us grew very dense. She seemed to open her lips to speak, but then she shut it again. "I'm going to take a shower," she muttered. "Get me out of the hospital." "Yes," I replied, taking a step back. "There are towels behind the sink. It's temperamental, the hot water." "Wait." After turning it halfway, she smiled slightly and answered, "Yes, sir." That night, while I lay on the couch, I could hear the pipes moaning and the slight sound of her footsteps in my chamber. It was difficult to fall asleep. She was often carrying suitcases in my doorway when I closed my eyes. Was that offer real? I heard her ask. I must have fallen asleep at some time because the next thing I heard was a quiet noise, a kind of stifled whimper. I blinked as I sat up. Except for the gleam of street lights peeking through the slats, the living room was pitch black. It was the same sound, broken and quiet. "Emma." I stood up and padded along the little corridor. Her door stood ajar. I gave it a gentle shove. Her hair was all over my pillow, she was twisted in the blanket, and her breathing was rapid. Her face was taut even as she slept, as if she were preparing for a blow. "Emma," I said in a whisper as I moved in closer. "Hey, you're all right." Her eyes flew open, wild and distracted, and she jerked. She was absent for a moment. She was somewhere else, in that apartment with the creaking doors or some horror hospital ward. "It's just me," I hurriedly said while raising my hands. "Noah, you're secure." Her gaze landed on my face. Her shoulders gradually became less tense. "I apologize," she whispered as she wiped her cheek. "I was not trying to wake you up." "You didn't," I said falsely. "I had a bad dream." She looked up at the ceiling and nodded. "I see him at the door all the time." I'm laughing. I am aware that it is foolish. Nothing took place. However, my mind won't let it go. "It's not dumb," I remarked. "Your brain is working to prevent it from happening again. That's what it does." She exhaled a breath devoid of humor. "I can't afford the therapist you seem to be." In order to avoid crowding her, I sat on the edge of the bed. "Want me to leave?" "No," she answered hastily. "Just stay for a minute," she said softly. Yes, I did. Her eyes were half-lidded as she rolled onto her side and looked at me. She appeared both younger and older in the dim light, with my covers drawn up to her chin. "Worn, but softer," she stated abruptly. "You know that secret I told might make you regret inviting me in." My heart leaped. "The one you began telling me prior to our encounter with Matt?" "Yes." A lock of hair was tucked behind her ear. "It includes the deception to Matt. However, there is more." I made an effort to speak quietly. "All right." She inhaled as if she were going to plunge into icy water. She stated, "I received an offer to work as a travel nurse. In Seattle. 12 weeks. Good compensation. Good experience. In 2 months, they want me to start." I felt sick to my stomach. And you? She said. I told them I needed time to think. But prior to today, I was fairly certain that I would say yes. The space appeared to get smaller. I answered slowly. So you might not just be moving in. You may be leaving Denver altogether. Yes, she muttered. This implies that if you truly allow me to stay, you're committing to someone who might leave in 8 weeks. Her eyes were wide with fear as she gazed at me. So, Noah, do you still want me here? She asked, her voice just above a whisper. Being aware that I might have already left? The word Seattle rang in my mind like a bell as I gazed at her in the gloom. In 8 weeks, she might be gone. My self-centered side wants to say no. Remain. Pick me here. That was unfair, and the part of me that truly loved her recognized it. At last, I replied in a hushed voice, I still want you here. Even for a mere 8 weeks. Even for a period of 8 days. She furrowed her brows. Why? Because you're already here, I said. And acting as though I don't want that, because it could not work out? More deceptive than anything you said to Matt today would be that. She looked into my face. You don't think I should have told you about Seattle sooner? I'm scared, I said. If I claimed I wasn't, I would be lying. However, I understand. You believed you would be confined to that flat, so you applied. Because you believed that leaving was the only way to feel different. She took a swallow. And now, you know you have another choice, I added quietly. You have a space all your own. Even if it's only a 1-bedroom with a dinosaur mug and a weird water heater. She gave a feeble smile. You genuinely believe that this might be my place? I remarked, I think it already kind of is. You're snatching my blanket while I'm in bed. That seems quite formal. Her eyes were still bright, but she gave a little snort of laughter. What if I accept the contract? We become closer, and I leave, ruining you. I answered, newsflash. The mere fact that you showed up with those suitcases kind of ruined me already. She opened her mouth. Noah, I said, I'm not saying that going won't hurt. I'm saying that, in order to protect myself, I'd rather spend 8 weeks learning the truth about this than pretending I don't care. She remained silent for a while. The clock on my microwave ticked away in the adjacent room, and I could hear the slight hum of traffic outside. She questioned, what if it's not just 8 weeks? What if I go, fall in love, and sign yet another contract? What if Denver turns into nothing more than a stop? When it occurs, we deal with that, I stated. We converse. We come. Or we determine it's too difficult. But rather than wondering all the time, we'll know we tried. She drew a long, tremulous breath. You make it seem courageous. I gave a shrug. Perhaps it is. Or perhaps it's just plain honest. She chuckled quietly. You and your integrity. She reached up and gave my t-shirt sleeve a slight tug, drawing me in closer. We were still facing one another in the dark while seated on the edge of the bed. Quietly, she said, lie down. I blinked. What? Just lie down, she said again. Over the blanket. I want to stop having dreams about strangers and doors. The sounds of your breathing and your dumb apartment noises make me want to go to sleep. My heart took a strange turn. All right, I replied. I left space between us as I lay out on top of the comforter. As if it were the most natural thing in the world, she moved closer and laid her head lightly on my chest. Trying not to move too quickly made my entire body tense. Are you certain this is all right? My question was hardly audible above a whisper. Yes, she whispered. I feel fine for the first time in the day. Her fingers brushed my ribs as her hand curled close to my side. With my heart thumping so loudly that I was certain she could hear it, I gazed at the ceiling in the darkness. I added, you're going to think I'm having a medical emergency if my heart keeps doing that. I'm going to start in 4, she muttered. The honor of the nurse. We became silent. Her breathing evened out slowly. Her shoulders became less tense. For the first time, the thought of her in my bed didn't seem like an impossible fantasy as I listened to the sound of her falling asleep. It felt just right. I didn't get much sleep. I didn't mind, though. Sunlight streaked across the room the following morning. I slept at an angle that caused my back to ache, but I hardly noticed. Emma was sitting on one elbow and staring down at me, already awake. Good morning, she murmured. I croaked, hey, you get enough sleep? She remarked, better than I have in months. You? I answered, I've been worse. Your brother forced me to spend a week sleeping on a beanbag during my junior year of college. She grinned. Then it dimmed. She suggested that we discuss Seattle. Yes, I sighed. We ought to. We took a seat. We were going to have a talk, but the dawn felt too bright. She pulled her knees to her chest and stated, "This is my problem. I'll constantly question what I gave up if I stay only because of you. I'll always question what may have occurred here if I leave only for professional reasons. In every version, I'm afraid I made the incorrect decision. What if we relieve some of the pressure?" I replied gently. "How?" she inquired. "Give them a call," I said. "Ask to be deferred. Or cut the contract short. Or begin later. Instead of making decisions based on hypothetical worst-case scenarios, consider your options." She bit into her lip. "What if they refuse?" I answered. "Then you have a clean choice. Remain here and construct something. Or go there and construct something. However, you have an option in any case. Not with terror. Not that of your roommate. Not your brother's. Yours." She looked at me as if she was learning my face all over again. She questioned, "How do you always say exactly what I need to hear?" "I don't," I replied. "I simply say what I would like to hear from someone." She inhaled deeply. "All right, I'll give them a call. Later, following coffee, as well as a shower, and perhaps a little sob in your lovely, private bathroom." I answered, "My bathroom is honored." She slid off the bed after laughing and pushing my shoulder. The following 3 days were an oddly lovely torment. We established a rhythm. Before her shifts, they have coffee together in the morning. While on break, she received texts in the middle of the night. I insisted on frozen pizza during grocery runs, while she insisted on purchasing vegetables. She is drying her scrubs on the back of my kitchen chairs. When she became cold, my t-shirt hung over her shoulders. Something ignited inside of me each time we brushed hands in the corridor. Something settled deeper each time she dozed off on the couch, and I wrapped a blanket around her. We didn't, however, cross any boundaries. We were close to something. Nearly more. Nearly there. She was sitting on the couch staring at nothing with her phone in her hand when I got home on the 4th day. My stomach grew constricted. "You gave them a call." She gave a nod. "Yes." "And?" Sitting across from her, I inquired. She spoke carefully as she added, "They offered me the full contract, like before. But they also offered me something else when I expressed that I was conflicted." I had a racing heart. "What?" She stated, "A per diem option. The same network of hospitals. Same city. But headquartered here. Denver. A flexible timetable. A little lower hourly wage, but I wouldn't have to quit." The breath left my lungs. "There's no need for you to travel to Seattle." "I'm not required to," she stated. "However, I could still. By the end of the week, they must have a response." "What do you want to?" I inquired. At last, she turned to face me. "Glance closely. I thought I had no one when I left that apartment," she recalled. "That nobody in this city would notice if I vanished. After that, I discovered that there is just one individual who consistently responds when I drive here. She tells me my brain isn't broken, puts blankets on me when I go to sleep, and answers my brother's calls." Her speech was calm, but her eyes were now watery. She remarked, "I want to be that person for you too. Instead of constantly rushing to the next thing, I want to experience what it's like to construct anything. This is what I desire. Alongside you. Here." It felt too full in my chest. "You're stating, I'm declining Seattle," she declared. "Actually, I had already done so. Prior to your arrival at home." I had to briefly close my eyes as a wave of relief washed over me. "When I succeeded." Her words were, "An hour ago." "I immediately began to worry that you would be upset that I didn't go chase my dreams, like some motivational poster, after I hung up." I chuckled a little unsteadily. "I'm not angry." "No?" she inquired, looking into my face. I said, "I'm selfishly thrilled. And proud, too. After you left me without staying. At any rate, not just for myself. For you, you stayed. For the you who want roots rather than just stamps." Tears were already streaming down her face as she blinked hard. "You think that's true?" "Yes," I said. I walked over to the couch next to her, bringing our knees together. "For the record, I would still have assisted you with packing if you had decided on Seattle. I would have continued to take your calls. I would still have supported you. It just would have caused far more pain." She gave a half sob, half laugh. "You're a complete moron." "I understand," I replied. "But you're a fool. If you'd want." With a trembling gasp, she reached up and clasped both of her hands over my face. "Yes," she muttered. "I truly, truly do." She then gave me a kiss. There was no comedy beneath it this time. Don't act fake. No excuses like just friends, Matt's little sister, or temporary roommate. It was quiet and confident, and it included every word we had yet to say. I gave her a kiss in return, drawing her nearer as my hand moved to the small of her back. The flavor of her warmth, and the sound of her tremulous sigh on my lips narrowed the entire world. We were both breathing heavily when we eventually split apart, foreheads mashed together. So, I began in a scratchy voice, about that invitation to move in. Through her tears, she chuckled. Yes, I said, I was serious. It's not just crash here for a while. Seriously, let's see what a life together looks like. Bright, watery, and genuine, her smile broadened. Well, she said, because my heart has kind of already been unpacked here. I let out a groan. That was really corny. She kissed me again and murmured, shut up. My phone buzzed later that night after we had rearranged her baggage in the closet and argued about who should keep the ugly lamp in the living room. Matt texted, Matt, how is your snoring affecting my sister? Emma snorted as she read over my shoulder. She took the phone and said, give me that. She typed rapidly. Emma, she's fine, according to my phone. I also don't snore. I did, however, ask her if she would like to move in. Yes, she replied. This time, for real. We waited. The dots emerged a minute later. Matt, man, I'm holding you to your word. Look after her. I typed back with a smile. I put the phone down. With her head resting on my shoulder as if it had always been there, Emma nestled into my side on the couch. She whispered, do you still think you might regret inviting me in? I gave her head a kiss on top. I said, not even a little. Because the joke has vanished. And the offer was genuine. A life we were finally brave enough to decide on together. Her, myself, in a tiny apartment in Denver.
If you felt good in this story, like, subscribe, and join me in the next one. Thank you.